Let me tell you something you already know. The world ain't all sunshine and rainbows. It's a very mean and nasty place, and I don't care how tough you are, it will beat you to your knees and keep you there permanently if you let it. You, me, or nobody is gonna hit as hard as life. But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done.
I'm in my zone, on the road to the Super Bowl. Every game on the schedule crucial, it take a toll. It don't matter if we at home or on the road. You try to tackle, I'll truck and suck it and take it so. I'm staring at 4th and goal, gotta find an open hole. A linebacker just close a hole where I'm supposed to go. So now I'm thinking my centers are all pro, so I trust he can make a waffle wherever the ball go. Yeah, there's 5 seconds on the play clock. The crowd was loud, but they stopped. Now it's silent while they watch. They stand off in the red zone. All I see is red home. Watch me get this touchdown and this W and head home.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to season 3 of Game Day Live with your boy Skywalker Steele and none other than former Cowboy Jesse Holley, my brother. What's up, fam?
What's going on, man? Season 3, man. And this is, I think this is going to be the most special one. I do. I think this is going to be the best. We coming at you with the best pre-halftime and post-game show. I think this is going to be the best year for the Cowboys. This is going to be the best year for the fans. And when we get back on location, it's going to be the best year for y'all to see us and be a part of this thing too. I'm excited, man. You know, I always love being here with you.
I saw somebody in the chat say, man, it feels good to see this again. Yes, yeah. You know when you see me and Jesse on the screen together, that means it's CGL, and that's Cowboy Game Day Live, man. And today is week 1, opening up the season. We've just seen the rest of the league. Week 1 is a strange lady, and we see a dogfight happening right now with our rivals, with the Philadelphia Eagles. But the Cowboys and Giants have released, Jesse, their very, very first, I believe, inactives list. And I wanted to kind of touch on that briefly prior to giving a take on the kind of macro part of the season before we get into the micro of the game tonight. But Jesse, we've got the inactives out, and right now those inactives are looking like this. Jordan Lewis is out for today, which a little bit of surprise, not too crazy, but he didn't participate all off season in regards to his injury, so he's out. Donovan Wilson, he's dealing with the calf strain, not quite ready yet. Trey Lance designated as the emergency third quarterback. Eric Scott, Jalen Brooks, Viliami Feoko, and Tyler Smith will be out today. Jesse Holley, let's kind of get your thoughts on this.
You know, for the rest of the guys, you understand that Jordan Lewis is the guy who they're still trying to, get acclimated, bring back, get in football shape. I think you may see more of him next week, but let's not play around with it. Tyler Smith not being in action tonight is one that is concerning, and it's not concerning because of anything else besides the one place that we feared that this Cowboys team could be weak or vulnerable at. Right, the way I've said it all week long was our training camp worries have become our regular season nightmares.
Yeah,
this offensive line could ill afford to lose anybody in the starting lineup. And we kind of always just said the other Smith, Tyron Smith, would be the one who would miss a couple games this year, and he's hobbled with a little ankle injury. But for Tyler Smith to be out with the hammy, when you start going to do MRIs, that concerned me a little bit, especially now going up against a Giants football team where if there's any strength that they can hang their hat on and really truly be confident in that doing well, it's that interior defense. It's guys like Dexter Lawrence. It's guys like Leonard Williams who can create havoc on you. And in those situations, when you got to go to the backup, those guys are licking their chops. Don Martindale is licking his chops saying, whoever you put in there, whether it's Edoga, whether it's TJ Bass, they're saying, we're going to check underneath the hood and see if they're ready to play Sunday Night Football early in this football game. And that could have ill effects for the Cowboys offensively.
This will be the 4th consecutive season in every year, really, for Mike McCarthy, where he's been missing a starting offensive lineman to open the year. Year 1, it was La'el Collins. Year 2 was Zach Martin with the COVID. Year 3 was Tyron Smith dealing with his torn hamstring. And then obviously this year is with Tyler Smith out. And the guy that they're going to be filling in for that is Chuma Edoga. And we'll get into the details of all that when we break down this game a little bit more. But I kind of wanted to start this thing off, Jesse, with kind of like I said, a macro view of the season. And the word expectation came to mind to me after looking at this offseason. And the question I had posed to myself and to you is, are the expectations higher than they've ever been because of what has been done in the offseason, meaning they have moved differently. They have moved in ways that maybe the rest of the National Football League has moved. And it's the Cowboys. I get it. Expectations are always high. But there was always that thing in the back of our mind like, yeah, it's high because it's the Cowboys, but in reality, they're missing a big chunk of what it takes to win a championship, right? Has that chunk been filled, thus raising the expectations higher than they've been in probably about 20 years?
You know, one of the things, Will, we've kind of always frowned our face upon when it came to the Cowboys, and not me, but a lot of people will call Stephen Jones Catboy, and you guys don't go out and get players, and you guys don't improve this football team. I've been around this organization, whether playing or covering it in the media since 2009. There has not been a more talented team from top to bottom on both sides of the ball than they have right now. You have experienced veterans. You have Pro Bowl players. You have people at their best at their positions. You have an all-world talent that's mixed in the mixes, and a guy like Micah Parsons. The expectations are high for the Dallas Cowboys because, let's be frank, this roster on paper looks like it's one of the best rosters in all of football. You add in Brandon Cooks, who's been a walking 1,000-yard receiver any and everywhere he's gone. He's played with championship-level quarterbacks, been to Super Bowls. You add in Stephon Gilmore, a former defensive player of the year. What these guys bring both on the field, knowledge-wise, and in the locker room improves your team exponentially. You look at a guy like Jalen Tolbert. We didn't know where he was at last year, and he's had a terrific training camp. Dak Prescott, you were in your 8th year. It's time for you to step up and be the leader. Tony Pollard, they handed you the keys to the Porsche. It's time to go. Dan Quinn, you've gotten any and everything that you wanted in the back end of that defense. And, of course, Micah Parsons, this is the guy who has been knocking on the door of Defensive Player of the Year. His rookie year, he won Rookie of the Year, finished 3rd in the rankings. Last year, he was runner-up to Nick Bosa. I think this is the year that he may get over the hump, win that thing. The expectations are high, Will, because this team is set and ready to go to fill those expectations. This isn't lofty goals that you're throwing at them and saying, Noah Brown's our second receiver. No. You got everything that you need to go out there and be successful. It's now time that you meet those expectations and exceed what you've done in the past and really put this team on the map so it can bona fideably be America's team.
Yeah, the pressure is there, man. And you know, they say pressure burst pipes or makes diamonds. And I think it was Dak who said, you know, pressure is privilege. And if there was, I don't think there's another player on this team, even if you include the coaches, right, that has more pressure on him than Dak Prescott. And I know we'll get into, again, the micro view of this game, but the macro view of it coming into this season, there's a ton of pressure given the season, how it ended last year, the whole 15 interceptions, right, leading the league in interceptions. That he's hearing it. He can say he's not hearing it, but he's obviously hearing it. And then you got the other national media saying, you know, hey, he's going to play conservative. Is he not going to change? There's just so much going into it. But that man that I showed on his screen next to Dak Prescott, Mike McCarthy, to me, your boy, Freaky Mike, is the reason why I feel good about this year 8 for Dak, because I think, Jesse, he finally has an offensive coach that has been around the block, that's raised that Lombardi, and now he's operating in a system that has been proven to do it. Do you have confidence in Mike getting the best out of Dak Prescott, even though it's been year 8? And a lot of people will say, oh, well, year 8, he is who he is. I tend to disagree because I've seen coordinators make guys better no matter how far they are in their careers, Matt Stafford. But I think Mike McCarthy can get the best. What do you think about that?
Come on, you're asking me, do I have
hey, look.
Is a pig's booty pork? Absolutely, I do. Does a whale crap in the ocean? Absolutely, I have confidence in Freaky Mike. I've had confidence since the day that they brought him in. I was one of the first people in the DFW or the Cowboys media and fandom who was pushing for Mike McCarthy to be here. I was disappointed when they said that Kellen Moore still had to be the offensive play caller when they hired Mike McCarthy. This is his time. This is what he does well. I think you'll see a guy who's more engaged. I always thought when Mike McCarthy, a guy who's been a head coach but also an offensive play caller, when you took those privileges away from him in game situations, he kind of was off a little bit because he wasn't engaged. There's something about being on top of your game when you're doing the things that you were born to do, walking in your purpose. Freaky Mike's purpose is to call plays in the National Football League. And I think he and Dak Prescott are now coming together and are going to show the world, the league, everyone that is watching, that they have a rapport that is going to be one that, if I'm maybe I'm kind of projecting too excitedly, but I think one that may be set for the record books, because Mike McCarthy calling the plays for Dak Prescott, I think is going to put him in the very best situation he's been in his 8-year career.
Indeed, man. And y'all pardon me if y'all see me snapping out or something happened in this Patriots game. I kind of got my eyes just a little bit on it. I'm sorry. They driving right now. It's getting a little crazy over there. All right, let's turn the page to this Giants Cowboys matchup, and we'll get back to Freaky Mike in this Cowboys offense for sure. But I kind of wanted to touch on what could potentially be happening here with the Cowboys defense against this here Giants offense. And before we get into that, I wanted y'all to take a listen or take a look at kind of this little thing I had going this past week to kind of tease us for this matchup. Here we go, Cowboys Nation. Week 1 of the 2023 season is finally here, and the Cowboys are looking to end one streak while continuing another. Since McCarthy has arrived, the Cowboys have put together back-to-back 12-win seasons for the first time since the 90s. Back-to-back, baby! Cowboys back-to-back in the house! But it hasn't started off great for the McCarthy-led Cowboys during his tenure with an 0-3 start in season openers. On the flip side, the Cowboys haven't lost to the Giants with Dak Prescott at the helm since 2016. That's 10 straight victories. And while the second-year head coach Brian Daboll has done wonders for the Giants, they were on the receiving end of a sweep in 2022, having lost both to Dak Prescott and Cooper Rush. But it was the defense that kept the Daboll-led offense at bay, averaging only 18 points a game between the two contests. Seeing Daniel Jones getting sacked 8 times with 1 touchdown and 1 interception, and while running back Saquon Barkley did find the end zone on a 36-yard touchdown in the first matchup, that was about it. In his other 24 carries, he averaged 3.5 yards per carry. This will be the second year in the Daboll offense, and they do have some new weapons in tight end Darren Waller and rookie speedster Jalen Hyatt. Let's take a look at what we can expect in this matchup between the Cowboys defense versus the Giants offense. I've got some key matchups here for this game that I wanted to touch on with you, Jesse, if you do not mind here. And obviously, we have the key players to this game. I got Saquon Barkley, Darren Waller, Andrew Thomas, the left tackle, and this could be maybe an underrated guy we'll get to later, Jalen Hyatt. But my main matchup, if you will, without being a player, is the coaches. I talked about it in there with Brian Daboll. I have immense respect for him and Kafka, Jesse, and I just think he knows how to get the best out of guys. But are these guys good enough for this Cowboys defense, which is one of the best, I think, in the National Football League? But what are your overall thoughts here on this Cowboys defense matchup against the Giants offense?
This is a chess match, and I love a good chess match when it's good on good. I, like you, have an immense amount of respect for Brian Daboll. I remember when they first hired him, when they fired Gettleman in the front office and brought in Joe Schoen, I get his name always mixed up. And then they said, we're hiring Brian Daboll. I said, ooh, they got football people in the front office. Yeah. They got football head coach on the sideline. This team is going to be different. But when you look at the matchup as they're going against each other, I think Brian Daboll he's gotten the best out of Daniel Jones, and he's going to squeeze the juice out of the rest of these players. Now, to your point, are they good enough? I don't know. But what Dan Quinn has done with this thing defensively, and one thing about his job that becomes a little bit more easier is when you can at least number 11, who is a game wrecker, it makes now life a little bit easier to do other things on the football field. Dan Quinn versus Kefka / Darian Dayball is going to be one of the matches that you have to watch because these dudes are smart, they're experienced, they have no fear, they are the best at what they do, and they're able to get the most out of the players that they are coaching. They understand situations, they understand the abilities of players. They're not going to ask guys to do things that they aren't capable of doing. But the guys who are capable of doing those things, they're going to set them up in the position to be successful. And that's one of the matchups, like you, I'm watching is on both sides of the ball. And even when you go Cowboys offense with Mike McCarthy against against Don Wink Martindale. Excuse me, that's another matchup that you're going to see. It's going to be the battle of the minds of experienced coaches. And this might be the best day one opening week coaching matchup in all of football when you look at the coordinators / head coaches that'll be going at one another.
That's interesting. But I don't know if it's a far stretch either, because the Cowboys have proven guys on their side in regards to McCarthy and Dan Quinn. And then those guys, Dayball, Kafka, have definitely made a name for themselves. And Wink has had some success over there in Baltimore. So, yeah, this is going to be a great cat and mouse matchup. From an individual standpoint, they went out and they added a guy like Darren Waller. So, Darren Waller, we all realize this guy is a walking injury. Like, he gets hurt, right? But it's week 1. And prior to Friday, I kept saying, well, it's week 1. He's healthy, so you got to take him serious. And you still have to take him serious. Then Friday happened, Jesse. It came out, Darren Waller had been dealing with some hamstring tightness throughout the week, and then Friday they pulled him out of practice for precautionary reasons. So I had put out a short that said, hey, man, he may not play. It's come out that Darren Waller will be playing, but he might not be right. And if Darren Waller is not right, I think that is major advantage to the Dallas Cowboys, because he was kind of that one guy, that one X factor that I think, well, I shouldn't even call him an X factor because he's their main dude. He was that wide receiver / tight end number 1 that, I think could strike a little bit of fear in the defense if there is any fear to be striked, right? But he's now dealing with a hammy. You're a wide receiver. You've probably played with a hamstring that's been a little sore. How is that going to affect him out there, especially being a guy who's not a 4-3 burner anyway? So, he's going to be relied upon underneath. How is that injury going to affect him?
Yeah, the biggest thing for a guy like Darren Waller, who, he has that ability that even when he's guarded, being at 6'6", he's open. His catch radius is crazy. His athleticism is crazy. But when you're dealing with the hamstring, you would think that he's going to deal with guys like Jaron Kearse, who's about 6'3", 6'4", and can kind of match him with size for size. It's when you want to pull away from a defender, right? When you're running these option routes, when you're running these when you're running these different type of routes, when you got to do the move the field, maybe slick tonight, whether it's happening up north. We saw a little bit of the New England game and how that was waiting up in South Jersey, maybe making its way towards the northern part of the state of New Jersey. For Darren Waller, it's a guy where the explosiveness may not be there. If he's trying to, stretch the field vertically, do whatever he has to do, he's going to be second guessing, can I really go into that next gear? And if he can't, I think that, again, is advantage to a guy like Jaron Kearse, who is, with his athleticism, will be able to stay with him a lot easier because he may not have that explosion in and out of breaks down the field, double moves, or even catching the ball at 8 yards and now turning up the field and using that horsepower to break out of a tackle that can give him the yak yards that you see him get so many times. So that injury, that a hamstring, and it's always a sneaky one because it can feel good right now.
Yeah.
And then think about it, and when you go to hit that second gear, boom, it'll jump up on you. So it's something to look out for and to watch throughout this game. But I never want to wish injury on any player. But if that's the guy that has to have a hamstring this game, then the football god saw fit. I'm not mad at it.
And let me turn to another matchup that, for me personally, I can't speak for anybody else, but I keep hearing about the Cowboys' offensive line. Now we're dealing with, an injury to Tyler, going up against that fantastic front for the Giants, and we'll get to that in a second. But I feel like the Cowboys matchup defensive line against the Giants offensive line is kind of going under the radar, which is wild to me, given the fact that you've got DeMarcus Lawrence, you've got Jonathan Hankins now in the middle. Jonathan Hankins did not play in this game last year, either one of them. He was not a part of either contest. And you got Michael Parsons on the other side, and now you're going to probably have Sam Williams, who is active today, Dorrance Armstrong, Dante. You've got a flood of these pass rushers and defensive linemen. Mozzie Smith, right? Your nose tackle backing up Jonathan Hankins. Why are we not hearing about this matchup? Because I think on the interior for the Giants, they're soft too. In fact, I'm going to go out and say, and this isn't a shocker, even with the Tyler Smith injury, this Cowboys offensive line is still better equipped than the inverse, meaning the Giants offensive line, whether they're healthy or not, I still don't think it's a good matchup for them. Definitely when we saw Micah get 2 sacks on Andrew Thomas, and we saw, this is where we got the twinkle toes from, y'all. We saw where Evan Neal, that matchup was with DeMarcus Lawrence. So I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I'll ask you, does this matchup, Cowboys defensive line against their offensive line, seem to be flying under the radar?
No, I think it is 100% that it's flying under the radar. I think we already kind of put Micah Parsons in this all-world galaxy, and we already think that he's going to do what he's going to do. But also, there's so many other matchups in this game that we're looking at. And let's be honest, right? Like, maybe there isn't always the sexiness of talking about the interior. But to your point, this is a matchup that must be seen, because the one thing I do know as someone who's played the National Football League, they're going to check to see if the Cowboys have truly fixed the middle of their defensive line. Whether that's with Mozzie Smith, whether that's with Hankins, they're going to try. They're going to try and see, you know what? I know they got some guys in there, but are those guys fit and ready to go to stop the run game in the middle of that defense? That's been the Achilles heel for the Cowboys defensive line for, the last couple of years. So it's going to be something to watch. There's going to be a ton of matchups to watch in this game, but that's going to be one. And for Daniel Jones, who has gotten better in the turnover department, but will still give you one, will still hold on to the football a little bit too long. If his offensive line can't hold up, then you're definitely going to see guys like Micah Parsons, like Tank and Fowler and Sam and all those other guys in the Cowboys defensive front get after him and definitely wreck shop and make that offense for the New York Giants kind of almost one-handed.
Yeah, I feel like they're gonna have to try to test this Cowboys defensive front in regards to running, because you don't want to drop back Daniel Jones, just straight drop back without the play action, right? So you need to have that threat, and your best player on the entire team is a running back, so you've got to get him the ball. And we've had success. Cowboys have had success in slowing down Saquon Barkley over the last number of years. Honestly, his entire career in Dallas, he really hasn't went off. Now, week one, he did score a 36-yard touchdown, and then after that, it was kind of curtains. But if they can get going with him, now it is drop back. And now it's going to be, Dan Quinn versus Kafka and Dayball with the whole horizontal game, which they're still a horizontal team. I'm just going to dink and dunk it to you, try to beat you down the field, and I'm fine with that. The one guy that could maybe throw this thing off a little bit, Jesse, is Jalen Hyatt, who has that speed to get deep. My thought on it is, if you're going to use Jalen Hyatt in that manner, you got to have time, right? And you've watched Jalen Hyatt last year at Tennessee, rookie was a third-round pick out of Tennessee. He definitely has that football speed that puts a little fear on your safety. And I wonder if Dan Quinn is going to understand that when he's out there, or he's going to say, hey, Rook, beat me.
Yeah, the thing is, and for Jalen Hyatt, he's going to have a little chip on his shoulder coming in his football game tonight. If you think back to when he was coming out of Tennessee, who was the wide receiver coach that kind of called him out of saying, like, hey, we know you run fast, but you ain't really a route runner. That was the Cowboys wide receiver coach. And so trust me, guys internalize that. It's the last dance, Michael Jordan. I took that personally type deal. But with a guy like that, anytime you have a guy with speed, when he lines up against Trayvon Diggs or Deron Bland or Stephon Gilmore, the first sound that goes off in their head, ding, 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 he has speed. And if I'm the New York Football Giants, I'm going to test that out. I'm going to see if Stephon Gilmore can run down the field with him and give him 3 or 4 YOLO balls in this football game. We know that Malik Hooker came up on the injury report with a little bit of illness. Don't know how that's going to affect him in the game. But this Cowboys secondary, mainly Trayvon Diggs, as good as he's been susceptible to double moves. I watched in training camp with a guy like Stephon Gilmore, where he is great in route recognition. He is great in understanding concepts. He is great in down and distance. The one area where Stephon Gilmore lacks, and he's kind of been that way his entire career, but most certainly entering year 12 for him, he don't have down the field speed. There is no fifth and sixth gear for a guy like Stephon Gilmore. So in the event that they catch them in one of those situations where they're in man-to-man coverage or they're in cover 3, but they're using it, they're kind of disguising it with a little bit of press coverage, whatever, and he gets to a point where he got to go stride for Jalen Hyatt, that can be bad for the Cowboys. And I think they're going to try to take some of those chunk plays today, because if you do, you've now given yourself an opportunity to succeed in that manner. You got to test this guy out. You got to test the defense out. You got to try it. You got to try it if you're the New York Giants in using all of that speed. It does you no good to have a guy who can run 23 miles an hour and all you want to do is run him on bubble screens or slants or whatever it is. No, stretch the field with them and see if those guys are ready to play that. If it works, great. If it doesn't work, all right, we tried it. But it's going to be interesting because Jalen Hyatt can be one of those guys. And we've seen from this defense in times in the past where big plays have happened when you don't get home, because sometimes you think about, man, Micah's going to get there. And if Micah trips or falls or the back chips over there, the tight end's over there, whatever, and they don't get home and you give Daniel Jones a little bit of time, he can throw that ball down the football field and make a big play. They got to be ready for that from the opening gate with a guy like Jalen Hyatt who has that breakaway ability, who can you think you're in off coverage and you're 8 yards off, and next thing you know, he ate that cushion up, and now he's giving you that cold old Randy Moss, throw that thing up there, and now he's behind.
So when you said that about the big plays, I was like, yeah, you're right. But then I thought right away, yeah, but that was boss man, not fat. That was Anthony. What can Brown do for you? That was whoever they decided to bring off the street last year, right, and put out there at cornerback too. And I think a lot of Cowboy fans, we have this confidence with this defense this year that's different because you now have a guy like Gilmore on the other side. And while, yeah, the speed factor is definitely real, I think when you have a guy with that type of ability to cover plus that pass rush, you know what I'm saying, plus that pass rush, can they complement each other in the sense of, okay, I'm going to give you an extra tick to get home because I got this covered. Or I'm going to give you an extra confidence on the back end because I'm pressuring the quarterback. What worries me, and we saw with Sauce Gardner, if it comes to Jalen Hyatt, is when they get him in motion and you're not allowed to kind of get hands on him or what have you, or like you said, they might catch you in that one time. What worries me is if he can get going, you get that momentum, you don't get your hands on him, he just runs straight down the field and they just throw it the hell up like Eli Manning used to do back in the day. So that is it. But to me, that's so far down the totem pole. Like, you can only try that a few times, and sometimes you might not be able to get that done, because last year in the first week, Daniel Jones was pressured more than anybody was pressured on Monday Night Football in the last, 15 years. And that offensive line hasn't gotten better. So I do like this matchup, but that speed is an X factor in this game for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And the thing is, even if you don't throw it to him, one of the things I pray that we're getting to offensively for the Cowboys, but one of the things that we've seen in the National Football League for the last couple of years, and you and I have always said that.
It, Jesse.
When you have that kind of speed with Jalen Hyatt, Malik Hooker, what does he have to do? You have to honor that. So I have to get deeper than the deepest. Yeah. And when he gets back and that he takes that other, cornerback deep, what comes underneath that? Those deep overs, right? Those guys like Sterling Shepard, those guys who, else can run those deep over routes, and that space is cleared out. So while they may not use that, may not throw the ball to that deep route, you got to respect it. You got to get in rush and get out of there. And what happens? Guys like Darren Waller, guys like Sterling Shepard, guys like Hodges, when they run those deep overs, those plays can be opened up using that, take the top off type of speed from a guy like Jalen Hyatt, and then you complete a couple of those, then what happens? Guys start peeking, trying to jump that, and now they go over your head on the back end. So that's the thing that you got to kind of that cat and mouse game. And it's all going to be predicated on what? If you give Daniel Jones time with that speed, and then it's not even Daniel Jones, honestly. It's any quarterback in the National Football League. If you give them enough time, they're going to hurt you if they have playmakers. So that back end of the defense for the Cowboys is going to be tied to, can we get home? And can we get home with 4 down linemen? Can we beat those one-on-one matchups when we have to? Because if I have to commit more guys to the line of scrimmage, then we create these holes in the back end. And the Giants do have some playmakers that can make plays, like Waller, like Hyatt, like Hodges. Those guys can make NFL catches. But if I can create that pressure, and now Daniel Jones has to be rushed in his progress, then
something to keep an eye on in regards to the back end is, without Donovan Wilson, will we see a whole bunch of Marquise Bell in this role as a safety, or will we see Marquise Bell in the Marvion Overshown linebacker role? That'll be something I'll be keeping my eye on in this matchup.
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing is, what I like that Dan Quinn has always done is he's given these guys opportunities and reps. So it's not new to them. It's not something that's foreign to them. So when they get into these games, and the multiple usage, the way that he used those guys, like a Marquise Bell, bring them down, bring them back, playing in the slot, all this stuff that you're able to do in training camp and practices and stuff like that, and the pass usage of them, prepare them for these moments like this, so that wherever they have to play, whether that's high, whether that's low, in the box, in the slot, back in coverage, these guys have enough experience to go out there and do it at a very, very high level.
Let's flip the switch here, because I want to talk about this Giants defense against the Cowboys offense, and we're gonna definitely break down what I hope the Cowboys are going to do and the changes in this offense. But on that side of the ball for the Giants, they bring back who I call him a madman, Wink Martindale. He's an absolute maniac. He's going to blitz you to death. He was first in blitz rate last year, and if depending what place you looked at, between 40 to 45% he was blitzing. Now, you could say maybe that's because he didn't have guys like Kayvon Thibodeau, Leonard Williams, and Azeez Ojulari for most of the season. But these guys are back. They're healthy. And to me, when you look at the key players, I don't list anyone else. It's that front. Because if that front can put the pressure on you, then maybe Wink doesn't have to blitz as much. Or if he does decide to blitz, it's just going to make it easier for these guys to go one-on-one. But it starts and begins with Dexter Lawrence versus Tyler Biadasz. Dexter Lawrence, all-pro defensive tackle, nose tackle. I don't know if you heard this stat, Jesse, but this is absurd. So from the 0 or 1, 0 tech, 1 tech, nose tackle, nose guard, whatever, Dexter Lawrence has 43 pressures last year. The second most was 13. So this dude can wreck your game if you let him. That is the key matchup to me in this entire game, is Dexter Lawrence against Tyler Biadasz, Jesse Allen.
It is. It most definitely is. And the thing that makes that so unique is, one, you're collapsing the pocket from the middle, right? And that's where defenses always want to start at. I want to be able to push that center back into the lap of the quarterback, not giving him anywhere to step up to, so that now my ends have a shorter path to the quarterback to sack him, to disrupt them, to strip sack, fumble him. But what makes that even more important is you now have to commit another guy to him. You have to have a guard put a hand in there on either side of the football. And now that creates one-on-one matchups for who? Dexter Lawrence. That creates one-on-one matchups for who? Kayvon Thibodeau. And the thing about Wink Martindale, when he brings these pressures, he wants to be able to do it with the front four first, and then he begins to add more guys into that, and you don't know where they're coming from. Yeah. That's the crazy thing about Wink Martindale, is that he'll pressure it. He'll bring a safety from deep. He'll bring a corner. He'll bring 2 corners. He'll bring he'll have 3 guys go down, 1 guy come around. Like there is nothing that he won't do to try to create pressure on the quarterback. He is all about pressure. He is all about confusion. He is all about dominating up front. And when you have those guys who, when you talk about a Leonard Williams and a Dexter Lawrence, who you honestly don't have to do anything for, it's like Micah Parsons. You don't really got to do anything special for Micah Parsons. He's that much dominant. You could just say, sick him, go get him. And their natural ability allows them to be successful in that assignment. So that's going to be key for the Cowboys, is being able to keep those guys at bay. But the thing about the new Cowboys offense, the Texas Coast offense, it gates a guy like Lawrence, like Williams, like Kayvon Thibodeau, is that ball is coming out ASAP. And when you can't get to the quarterback, you get frustrated, you get a little bit agitated, and that bothers guys a lot of times, because they're like, dang, hold it another second. And they're like, nah, balls out hot, balls out to my playmakers, balls down the field. And those guys now are negated because they need time in order to get to the quarterback.
And let's get to that goodness. And there's some other players, defensive players on that side of the ball in the front seven. Isaiah Simmons, I think, can be a bit of an X factor too over there. He's new, but he's athletic as hell. But for as much as we talk about Daboll and Kafka's horizontal game and getting the ball out quick, and I call it deception, I think we're finally going to start to see some of what we, for years, the 2 years we've been doing this, Jesse, have been screaming for, and that's a lot of mesh concepts. Rubs, overs, play action, and affecting all three levels of the field. And one of my favorite quotes coming out of the offseason was way back in something like May or whatever it was with Schottenheimer when he said, we are going to threaten every inch of the field. And how many times did, I'm sending you film last year or I'm sending you a screenshot and I'm like, bro, why are we have nobody here? Right. Why are we running 4 verts? Why are we running 4? Why are we not threatening every level of the defense? And just from what I noticed in preseason and in camp, is we're going to have concepts that have high-low reads where it's affecting every part of the field. We're going to have the middle of the field, meshes, crossovers. All of this excites me, Jesse. What does it do for you?
Same thing. One, I am so high on. Let me just say this. I'm so high on CeeDee Lamb right now. I think he's getting ready. I think, oh, my God. Yeah. He's getting ready to take off. Like, coming into this year, I did not have him in the elite category of receivers. I didn't think he cracked that seal yet. But I feel by mid-season, we will be talking about him as, no. Yeah, he's in the conversation now. Yep. He's in there with the Jamar Chases of the world. He's in there with the Jeffersons of the world. He's in there with the Tyreek Hills of the world. I think CeeDee Lamb is about to take off. And when you talk about this passing game, it's going to start and end with CeeDee Lamb. He is going to make this thing go. When you're using him in a multitude of ways, like you said, in the mesh routes, the over routes, I watched CeeDee Lamb. I saw him a couple of weeks ago at practice, and you can tell when a player is entering his man body. And I looked at CeeDee Lamb and I said, his calves look thicker, his legs look thicker, his chest look. Oh, I said, oh, he's becoming the man. And then you watch him run routes, and the way I looked at it, I said, he has this speed with this power behind it that I'm so excited about. The yak yards that are going to come with CeeDee Lamb this year, the breakaway ability, the catching the ball in traffic ability. He is set to make this thing go for this offense. And to your point, we have been begging and pleading for guys like Kellen Moore and Jason Garrett and others to run the routes that we see other teams in the National Football League run because we have the guys to do so. I think those days have finally come where we're going to see it. We saw it in practice. We saw it in some in preseason. I just can't wait to see it tonight because this offense can do some really, really special things with the athletes that they have.
And I do think it can help negate this rush or this defensive front. When you're going up, and again, I still have a lot of confidence in my starting unit. I get that we're going to be having Chuma Edoga at their left guard, but folks, Tyron Smith is healthy. He tweaked his ankle, but he's out there. When Tyron Smith is out there at left tackle and he's not out there, he's usually solid enough. You still got Zach out there, Terrence Steele, Tyler Biadasz. I think you do have a good front to fight these dudes for majority of this game. Will it be easy? No, but you should be able to win a lot of these battles. So I think you'll be able to contend up there. But when you add on top of that a scheme that should help, right? Play action, getting your quarterback on the move. Dak Prescott talked about being able to run a little bit more this year based off of the scheme. We saw Will Grier in that Seattle game get a ton of play action work from when Mike McCarthy was calling the plays. Hell, Dak Prescott called some plays, so we kind of get a little insight on what he might like in regards to being out there. So I think this scheme's going to help.
And let me say this. One of the things, as I went back and started looking at Mike McCarthy, there's two things that I kind of really found out. Because when I started looking at tape, I started trying to find tape for the Giants. Like, what about watch for the Giants game? How do I watch? Well, this offense supposedly isn't going to be the same, right? It's going to be more of the West Coast offense. Yeah. It's going to be more of that. So I begin to go back and I begin to watch Green Bay tape, right? And I begin to watch things and look at stats from the Green Bay thing. A couple things that stood out to me. One, this roster, the way it's constructed offensively, is looking a lot like what McCarthy had back in his days. Two, one thing I think that, and I've been on record saying that I thought, Tony Pollard, $10.1 million, fourth highest paid running back in the league. He's going to get the ball 100% of the time. You got to go all the way back to 2015 since Mike McCarthy had one running back run for over 1,000 yards. It was Eddie Lacy that did that. But when you look at the stats from the running backs, it was a cornucopia of running backs that they used, and guys would have 600 here, 700 here, 500 here, and they would use those things. Another thing that really stood out to me, and this is when the Cowboys get into this offense, the rollouts, the naked bootlegs that we've seen Aaron Rodgers run so much. I went back and I started looking at the stats. When I'm looking at the running backs, I would see Eddie Lacy, I would see James Starks, and go down a few, and there was Aaron Rodgers. And Aaron Rodgers would always have 300, 350 yards, 370 yards in the season of rushing totals. And it started adding up because when you're now naked and you're booting out, if that thing is not open, Aaron Rodgers in his heyday will just take off. And I think we're going to see some more of that with Dak Prescott, which I think is going to be fantastic because you now add yourself into the mix of guys that they have to defend. You're using your legs and your athletic ability in a way that it still makes you a viable thrower. But if everything is off, if nothing is open down the field, you now have the rain to tuck it. The rain, no point intended. To tuck it and run and gain yards. So that's key with this Cowboys offense. Will Dak use that to his advantage this year the way Aaron Rodgers did in the heyday of Mike McCarthy calling plays in this West Coast, Texas Coast offense? You
mentioned Eddie Lacy, and you talked about, I call it a stable, a committee, or what have you. That is definitely up his wheelhouse. He's a guy that, talking about McCarthy, he's a guy that wants to use multiple backs, sometimes 3 different backs. In the Super Bowl year, he used a plethora of those guys. And I like the makeup of this running back room. I know it's not a proven one, except for one guy, but I think it's a complementary one. I think that's two different things. You can be skeptical that these guys aren't, proven, except for Tony Pollard. But when you got a guy like Tony Pollard who can, in my opinion, do it all, and you want to talk about, we call it touchdown or check down in the West Coast, I think TP is going to have a big year in the air. I think he's going to have way more than 39 receptions this year. But nonetheless, he's electric. So you have a Tony Pollard who's very electric. And I'm not calling him this player, and rest in peace. Rico Dowdle, to me, he runs angry like Marion. I'm not saying he is Marion. I'm saying he runs angry like him. And Marion Barber, if y'all remember, wasn't a 235, 45-pound back. He just had a mentality like he was. And he ran that way. And he had an elite balance as well. But when I see Rico run, he runs pissed off, Jesse. And you need that in that room because you got 2 electric dudes. And the other one is Deuce Vaughn. And Deuce Vaughn, I call him the magic man. Because now you see me, now you don't. He just pops up like Houdini, and next thing you know, he's gone for 15, 20, 30 yards down the field. So last year, when in the postseason, when TP went down, you didn't have that electric. You didn't have that compliment. And with all due respect to Zeke, right? But Zeke he was done at the end of that season. Yeah. Your room now complements each other. And as long as this scheme and the blocking up front can give them something to work with, I like what this room could potentially do barring injury. That is the one thing you have to worry about, right? Is TP, can he handle it? Rico's been a guy that's been dinged up, and my man is small. Oh, by the way, we finally have a fullback in Hunter Lipke. Will he be a guy that maybe gets some of those reps in the goal line situations or third down situations? So I like the makeup of this running back room, Jesse, but what are your thoughts on how it's been deployed or how it will be deployed?
Yeah, I mean, Tony Pollard, I've always loved Tony Pollard, right? And despite his size, he's been able to do everything that you needed to do, run the ball outside. I know people say, but what about running the ball up the middle? Tony Pollard's done that well, too. The numbers show that he's able to run the ball in between the tackles. The one thing about this, team is people are going to say running back rooms, can they pick up the blitz and stuff like that? This offense gets the ball out quick, so those blitzes are coming. The ball is already gone before they get there. Unproven. That's my only concern. It's a lot of unproven guys in this running back room. I think Tony Pollard is special. I think he's going to have a fantastic year. He is a do-it-all running back for you. But the way that they're going to use him and Rico, and I think Deuce, you're going to see be the guy that they use in the passing game a lot. Screens, quick slants, arrow routes, Texas routes, many different things like that, because you can get a guy like that in space, and he's very, very hard to tackle. I wasn't out on Deuce earlier in the year. I wanted to see him play more of the first team reps. The thing about Deuce is his size, and so when you're trying to run packages for him, they have to be the right packages for him. I don't think you can just line him up in the backfield and give him the ball 15, 20 times like you could do with Tony Pollard. But finding about 8 to 10 reps for him throughout the game, throughout the year, I think will be vital to this team offense. If this passing game is going, it opens up for everything else to be successful. It's going to start with being able to get the defenders off the line of scrimmage, and now you can do more things with those backs.
I think that's something me and you we might be tussling about when it come to Deuce. I think Deuce.
That's fine. That's good.
So we'll come back to this conversation if it pops up. Hopefully we don't have to see it, right? Like hopefully we don't got to see him tote the ball.
What if grab him? We'll be like, oh yeah, it might be a little.
I mean? And when I say tussle, I mean I'm just gonna bridge you, dog, because you're about 6'4". So we're about 9 minutes away from kickoff, Cowboys Nation. We're going to get a couple quick hitters in to end this show. Shouts out to y'all for joining us on our very first Cowboy Game Day Live with your boy Skywalker and Jesse. First of, hopefully, Jesse, 20 or 21.
Yes.
That's the number.
That is the standard.
That's the number.
That is the expectation for me. It's Facts. Super Bowl and nothing else.
Facts. Period. All right, let's do X Factors first.
Okay.
Let's talk X Factors. All right, I'll start it off. I'm gonna stick on this side of the ball. My X Factor for the Cowboys, this is a very, very underrated one too, I think. Rico Dowdle. I think Rico Dowdle is an X Factor here, and here's why. He's probably going to be the guy they put in on third downs a lot to block. He's probably going to be a guy that they use to spell Tony Pollard. He's probably going to be a guy they try to use early on in games for the third and shorts and whatnot, unless Hunter Lipke's the guy. But I'm just thinking it's going to be him. So can he be, and again, not calling him Zeke, but can he be that Zeke to Tony Pollard where against the Giants? Where if we go back and look at the history of this matchup, Zeke and TP used to eat these guys alive, right? Like they went off on these guys. So it's going to take more than one person. Can Rico be that second one? Because again, if your offense can live, I want to say live through, because it's not. I don't think it's going to live through the running game. But if it can be efficient on the ground, it's going to take a couple players, and I think Rico Dowdle is going to be that second back that gets the second most carries tonight for the Cowboys. So he's kind of my X factor on offense.
Yeah, my X factor in this one, I'm on the defensive side of the ball. It's Jaron Kearse. Jaron Kearse versus the tight end. What he's able to do in the tight end coverage and in the running game. Make no doubt about it, the Giants are going to try to run Saquon Barkley. Like I said earlier, they're going to test and see if the Cowboys have fixed their guys, their interior defense, and they're going to try to get the ball into Saquon's hand. Jaron Kearse, you've seen him so much more in this big nickel or big dime package that Dan Quinn has employed in the defense, where he's now playing down in the box. With his size versus Darren Waller, with his ability to run with him, I think that kind of gives the Cowboys at least a fair advantage in that matchup, and not allow Darren Waller to be a dominant factor, but also being able to be in that box and step up in the running game with a guy like Saquon Barkley, who they're going to run in between the tackles, going to run outside, going to set screens up for him. Jaron Kearse, to me, is the X factor on the defensive side of the ball. And I know that Micah is the rah-rah guy on the defense, but Jaron Kearse is the heart and soul.
He's a leader.
He is the bona fide leader in this. He is the heart and soul of this defense, and maybe one of the top leaders on this football team. So having him out there is going to be the X factor for me, and his ability to shut some of up that the Giants, want to do offensively. All
right, underrated matchups. Over the week, I had listed about 4 key matchups. J-Ron was one of them with Darren Waller, Tyler Biadasz, Dexter Lawrence. These were kind of marquee matchups, right? But what are the undercards? And my underrated matchup tonight is Deron Bland versus Paris Campbell. Paris Campbell's the newly acquired wide receiver for the Giants, added some more speed. By the way, it wasn't just Jalen Hyatt, but Paris Campbell brings a little bit of that veteran to him, right? He brings not just the speed, but the how-to. I say this all the time. You can be fast as hell, but then you'll just end up like John Ross, or a guy who's one of the fastest to ever step foot on the field, but he doesn't really know how to be that complete wide receiver. I think Paris Campbell's starting to come into his own. He's been healthy, and he played against the Cowboys last year. Ironically, in that game, 4 receptions, 43 yards, but that was a game that DeRon Bland said, nah, I'm here. You ever see that video they got for Patrick Mahomes sidebar where he's talking and they got the Kermit the Frog, I'm here. That was DeRon Bland. I'm here. DeRon Bland said, I'm here. Okay. He got 2 interceptions in that game against Paris Campbell. Now, it wasn't against Paris, but, he was involved in that game. So if DeRon Bland can capitalize off of the opportunities, because they're going to go to him, right? Like, it's not just, they're not going to attack Diggs and Gilmore all game. They're probably going to look at this matchup. If DeRon Bland can win that matchup, now you're funneling things back to the outside, to your veterans. And if that's the case, I like my chances for the Cowboys to come away with an interception or turnover, forced fumble, what have you. So DeRon Bland versus Paris Campbell is my underrated matchup tonight.
That's a good one. But my underrated matchup, and I see a guy, Mark Smith, you're on the same page as I am. My underrated matchup is youthfulness versus experience. The Giants are going to march out 2 rookie cornerbacks.
Yeah.
They have 0 snaps in the National Football League against Brandon Cooks and CeeDee Lamb. Brandon Cooks has 7,410 snaps in the National Football League, entering his 10th year. CeeDee Lamb has 2,627 snaps in the National Football League. CeeDee Lamb, 260 receptions in his career. Brandon Cooks has 630. So that's going to be a huge underrated matchup in the fact that they like these 2 rookies, but the thing about being a rookie is you haven't been around the block a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going up against 2 of the most experienced guys in the National Football League, 2 guys who have speed, who have power, who have route running ability, who have the knowledge of what they want to do. So that's going to be an underrated matchup that we have to look at today. Youthfulness versus experience. There is about almost 10,000 snaps between the 2 of the Cowboys wide receivers to the 0 amount of snaps in the National Football League for the Giants rookie cornerbacks, Trey Hawkins and Dante Banks.
Dante Banks, I believe Maryland, first round pick. All right,
Yes.
Quickly, last one here. We're going to do Cowboys win if, Cowboys lose if, on our way out. So for me, Cowboys win if they can deal with Wink Martindale's pressure points up front, and they lose if they can't. Pretty simple to me.
Yeah, one thing that we have to make sure that was just an anomaly last year and it wasn't becoming the norm. Cowboys win if they do not turn the football over.
Yeah.
If they do not turn the football over, that was something that plagued them last year with Dak Prescott and company. And it wasn't all on Dak Prescott. I do think running backs, receivers, tight ends, if the ball hits you in the hand, chest, or head, I'll shoot you in the chest. I'll wet you. And it's intercepted. That stat should go on you, not the quarterback. We've heard all season long is what? The communication is good between the pass catchers and quarterback. They had the weekend in Georgia where they had the special ops come out and work with them and get them into those situations and scenarios. The Cowboys win if they do not turn the football over against the Giants. The weather may be a factor, might be a little bit wet in this game at some point in time. Can you handle on the road, being in a hostile environment, not playing together in the preseason with the new offense? The communication better be there. Y'all better be on the same page because you turn the football over, that lessens your chance to lose the football game.
Yeah, it could be a bit of a iffy start because of that, what you said, not playing much in the preseason. But I do think at the end of the day, the Cowboys are the better team, and they should get the dub. But
Yes.
that would do it for Cowboy Game Day Live, the pregame show. Make sure y'all come on back. Check out your boys, Skywalker and Jesse, for a halftime show soon as it hits double zeros. For Jesse, Holley, Skywalker, Steele, we ready. Hey.